we know Ten Hag's under pressure at Man United, but I want to point this out because I was horrified by this today. I was absolutely horrified seeing this from one of them is actually a Man United aggregator and news channel. The other one is the biggest sports radio show and channel in the United Kingdom. And I think actually the world, they boast that. I've heard them say it before. They have posted that Erik Ten Hag has lost his third straight match as manager because his team that he was managing a testimonial game this weekend lost. Now, for me, I wanted to call this out because everyone knows I'm not Ten Hag's biggest fan. Everybody knows I think Ten Hag probably has to leave Man United. But I called this out because I thought to myself, what a disgrace this is. What hatred, what trolling, what despicable reporting this is. Testimonials are less than a friendly. There's friendlies, and then there's testimonials. They're like down here. It's soccer aid, bruv. Seeing that from Talk Sports, seeing that from Central Devils, whatever they're called. I know Griggs is a United fan. I know the other two are not United fans, but for me personally, I thought that was disgusting that they would even make an article about it.
I find it funny as well, Tel, with what certain platforms and other people say about you with the Chelsea stuff. This ain't news and that, but I don't see people going around saying that ain't news because that really ain't news. That he's lost a testimonial match like that, like is people that are retired playing and that stuff. I didn't even know there was the testimonial match on. I don't even know what the teams were or anything, to be honest. But that's once again, man. I think it's these things like even like platforms and that they just want to get these clicks because it's stupid. But then you'll have obviously the people that really hate Ten Hag and that they're all going to jump on that. You're now going to have rivals that want to banter Man United and say if you lose on the weekend now, for example, they'll be like, oh, you've lost Ten Hag 4 in a row. He's lost now. And then you'll be sitting there scratching your head going 4 in a row. Like, when was that 4th game? And it was a bloody testimonial match. But I just think when someone wants to drive a knife into someone's back, they just keep going and going. And I think that's what it is with Ten Hag now. I think it's going to take a lot now for Ten Hag to ever have a career at Man United. I just think it's too far. But when you see stuff like this coming out, what hope in hell does he have? Even if he has a half decent season this year, I don't feel like the media, the fans, the rivals are going to let him have a career at Man United now because it's just getting a bit shocking now. And I feel actually a bit sorry for him with that. Like, don't forget, this is a guy and it's his job. Like, people want to forget this when it comes to footballers, the managers and that. People want to forget that it's a human being. They want to just think it's like some robot that you can just chuck abuse at and just keep going on about and everything. But to even criticize a testimonial match just shows levels of, I just think, disrespect, a lack of class, I'd say, to even use that. Like, once again, do you know what the testimonial match was, Tel?
Nope. And frankly, I don't care. I'm not even gonna. It's so insignificant. And I think the thing for me is that I don't know if he's going to turn it around at United. I hope he does, but I don't think he will. Some Man United fans, like, they hate that. Oh, you've got to back him. Well, you haven't got to back something you don't believe in. But what I will say to everyone who says they're a Man United fan, whether you despise Ten Hag or love him, this is where you should stand by your club. Because I think that this is where I wouldn't let the wolf through the door. Because that kind of reporting is a wolf in sheep's clothing. I don't like that type of thing. This is where I'll stand by my football club and say, enough's enough. This is a disgrace. And I left it until this show, because it's one of our biggest shows of the week, most viewers that we get. And I wanted to speak about it on there. And for me, it's a case of, it wound me up something chronic, because it's still Man United they're attacking. And there are some United fans that go, oh, yeah, we can jump on the pylon. Why? It's our football club that they are mocking here, and there is no reason to even report on the testimonial game. There's zero reason. It's a nothing football match. It meant nothing. I get the Dutch press doing it because I assume it was in Holland. I don't know.
I think it was like Utrecht, based on like
I don't know. It left a very sour taste in my mouth seeing it, especially forget TalkSport for a moment. Especially, and by the way, I wonder, this is no dig. This is true. I hope that Flex and the boys on there, they have a weekly United show now on TalkSport. I hope you bring it up and slam them. I hope you bring it up and whoever the journalist was and ruin them, bruv. Ruin them and embarrass them on screen, because why even write an article about it? And that big United channel that shared it, come on now. It's mad.
Yeah, obviously, I didn't know there was that small. The only charity match I knew was the Man United Celtic one, because I watched Ray Rooney's free kick about 55 times, and then Michael Carrick's performance to reminisce how it feels to have an actual good DM in life. But yeah, I didn't even know Ten Hag was doing anything in Holland. Obviously, he didn't help himself by attacking the journalists last week. Like just like we mentioned, the journalists now are going to pile onto him even more, because journalism is like a union. Like all those guys kind of back each other, and he attacked one of them last week by kind of being aggressive towards him. So he even put much more of a target on his back. And the club is also not doing well enough where you could kind of paper over that kind of target by saying, oh, we're winning. You can't really attack me right now because we're still struggling. So he's not helping himself by that. But yeah, with Ten Hag, it's writing on the wall. I don't like that kind of journalism either. I don't understand why they reported it, because obviously I work with a couple of the aggregators on Twitter and stuff like that. We didn't even post that in our group chats, let alone on the actual Twitter page. That shouldn't even, no one even cares about what he does at Utrecht. For all we know, we all should have thought Ten Hag was in his crib with his wife enjoying international break. That's about it. No one cares what he should be doing other than that. So I don't understand. But yeah, I think for me, it's the target's going to keep happening. And the only way to get off of it is for United to start winning. But for that to happen, you actually need to start performing as a football club. And all I'm saying is, but this might happen next week too, because Terry, you saw all our international players were hooping over the weekend. They all thrived. They come back on Thursday to training and stuff like that. We have an early kickoff against Southampton on Saturday. If we struggle, automatically a couple people are going to spin the topic into look at all these guys. Xerxes was scoring over the weekend for Holland. Ugarte, who by the way Ten Hag said is months away from joining and stuff like that, played 80 minutes for Uruguay in a South American qualifier. Bruno had an amazing weekend. Dalo, all these kind of guys. So he needs to change also his approach in press conferences as well, and kind of maybe be a little bit more similar to his first year.
I agree. He has got to perform. He has to get the team performing. Otherwise, they will come in for him. They absolutely. And then what you might get from his detractors that are Man United fans is, why wasn't he focusing on making the team? Why was he at a testimonial game when he should have been focusing on making us play better? That's how it will be spun, because again, it's they're very transparent, these individuals. On Man United, though, reports this evening that we are going to hold talks with Rabiot about a deal to bring him in to bolster the midfield.
Is that
what's everybody? Let me ask you this: what's everyone's problem with Rabiot? Every time I watch him play, he looks quite good. I don't get why
his mom is Kris Jenner. That's the issue. It's keeping up with the Rabiots. That's what it is. It's literally that. First of all, I think he wants high wages. That's the first thing. Obviously, he might lower his wages because Deschamps kind of called him out and said, you better find a club if you want to continue playing for France in the international stage. Otherwise, it's good for you in that stage. So maybe he'll lower his demands now. Obviously, is he a bad player? No, he's a good player. He had a good time at Juventus. He was one of their better performing midfielders. And let's be real, he's not worse than Casemiro in 2024. So I'll have that to deal with. But I think it's the issue that he brings. Like I mentioned, his mom, she might not even be his agent anymore. So I have to go a little bit into further detail, but it's the issues with Rabiot. He's also the kind of player when I look at the sign, I'm like, can I trust this player in the trenches? When we have like a big 6 game away at Anfield, for example, can I trust this guy to perform? Like Amrabat, for example, not the best of players, but I knew he put in a shift. Rabiot, if he's not on it in the mood, he'll look like one of the worst players on the pitch. The body language and stuff like that. I look at players' body language, and Rabiot, not that kind of guy, and especially for a club like United where he'll probably just look at us right now kind of like as a paycheck, as a way back into the maybe France team, that kind of stuff. I don't view him as the kind of guy that will...
Let's be honest right now. What you're doing is trying to turn away a player that is not, like you're trying to say, oh, we don't really need him. When you look at Manchester United's midfield, as we can all see, there isn't really one. It's just open season. Everyone can get at it. So right now, Man United need all the reinforcements they can get. When I look at Rabiot and I look at the current midfielders you have a lot of midfielders that aren't good on the ball, not very mobile. You signed Ugarte, who I've gone out there and said it. He's just a fancy Højbjerg. He's just got a nice name. He sounds nice. He comes from PSG. He played in Sporting Lisbon, but this guy's not really good. If you actually look at the stats, I think he was one of the most dribble pass players and in all of the Champions League last season. So it's not someone that's coming in to take your midfield to the next level. And then I look at Rabiot, again, not an outstanding player, but on the ball, he's tidy. And like you said, in big games, he's played in big games. So I don't see why he can't come in and contribute.
Well, what I'll say is from the Liverpool fan base, I'd probably say midfield is probably the weakest part of our squad. And I don't think there's much appetite for Rabiot to come in. I think a couple of seasons ago, there may have been more interest. But from what he's done relatively recently, I don't think... I don't think he significantly improves us. And obviously, United with the talk about restructuring the wage bill and all this kind of stuff, how is that going to get settled? Like, if he's coming in on 150, 200 grand a week, that seems a bit hasty, but I don't know. I'd be cautious about it.
I think the price.
I'd give this shift to someone in the academy personally. I can find a kid in the academy that can just do the same shit Rabiot can do. Or because in Ten Hag's midfield, it's not like you need to be a baller to play in Ten Hag's midfield. All you gotta do is just be able to run. That's about it. Because he ain't gonna play through the midfield anyway. He's gonna ignore it. So you might as well just have legs. And we could probably find someone in the academy, like a Collier, for example. Just have him do the job. He has a passion for it. He has the legs for it, all that kind of stuff. Have him do the job, and he'll be on like 20K a week wages. What he just mentioned, Rabiot wants over 250K a week. He's gonna that would make him, I think, on even pace with like Mason Mount, who we already hit his wages. So imagine with a Rabiot, he'll be on like that's too high wages for me for a guy that's a stopgap.
Yeah, I agree with. I don't want him on ridiculous wages that you think that you can't move him on from, as an example. If he was to be on something like 150, could rise to 250 if we achieve certain things, and he's an integral part. So I don't know how you word it, but
it's a 1 year deal, Terry. 200K a week, 1 year deal. That's not so bad.
One year deal,
one year deal, not an issue because he's going to go at the end of it. But I still think it depends if we really want him. So if he's a player that we think really, because I think he improves our midfield as an individual player overall, I think he improves our midfield. The price has got to be really important about how much we pay him, because he clearly isn't the main guy we want. If you put him on too big a deal, when it comes to next summer and you go, right, we want to move for the better ball playing midfield player, we can't now because we've maxed all our wages out on a 4-year deal for Rabiot. So I want us to make sure we get that right. But when it comes to I get what people say about him not looking a bit nonchalant in games. I see a lot of people say that, not so much you, Griggs, but I see a lot of people say it who also used to say, don't talk about Anthony Martial's body language. And I find it interesting that there are certain players whose body languages we can talk about, and then other players who we can't. Rashford, if you talk about Rashford's body language, you're made into a superstar online. Like, people love it when you slag off Rashford's body language. Talk about Paul Pogba's body language, you scumbag. It's really interesting. And I'm talking within the Man United fan base, there are certain players who's McTominay, you could rip into that body language. He's always hiding. He never wants to get involved. When they go and get stuff, he disappears. Bruno's body language, you can screw it. I'm a little bit more open-minded. I don't necessarily think the body language is too much of an issue. Again, every time I watch him play, he looks good. I think I think he looks good to very good all the time. I never really watch him and go, wow, look at that performance. Equally, I've very rarely watched him play and gone, that was a stinker. Like, he was absolutely dog. And I think Man United, I know that Souness laughed about this before, but I almost feel like we need a bit of a steady Eddie. But the price has got to be right. So if we could bring him in on a good wage or a short-term deal to bolster the midfield this season, I'd be really happy with that. I look at the systems are always important. Last year when Liverpool got Gravenberch, I was so gutted. I knew there was a player in there. This season he's playing in a slightly more Dutch system as opposed to sort of the German element of Klopp. And I know it's only a few games, but I think people are seeing the player that Bayern Munich bought, that Liverpool bought last year. And the worst bit would be Rabiot joins a rival on a similar deal to what we could get him for, and he kills it. You know what I mean? If he goes to a rival and he kills it, that is going to hurt us when we're and I get what you're saying about Collier in midfield. I like him. He's a really talented young man. But if things don't start to get better soon, I almost don't want another kid going into the team.
Because I also think, if you're not sure about a player, you shouldn't sign him, right? Like, if the scouts and the people, the director of football, all that kind of, if they're not sure, then I think it's better to walk away. But again, it kind of depends a little bit on your level of desperation or what you know, what maybe you look to think what can we do in January? Maybe if there's opportunities, or you're speaking to players and you think there may be an opportunity in January, maybe you wait until then. But if you don't think there's anything on the horizon, and you think, you know what, we need to try our best to get European football or Champions League football, maybe you roll the dice on a 1 or 2 year deal.
I hear that. Now, listen, it's just going to be an interesting one. If we could bolster it with a decent free transfer, I am up for that, because we just need that little bit more. I think
he's left-footed too, by the way.
Games.
That's the one thing I like. He's left-footed. United have I think right now, we only have one left-footed player in the back six, which is just Lisandro Martinez, because Luke Shaw is injured. So he would help from that kind of perspective in terms of the angle bias, and add a left-footed player into the midfield. It would help without having a left back right now. So there's a few positives to him, but if the wages ain't right, just move on and just wait for someone in January next summer.
No, I hear you on that completely. I do.